Why, from your perspective, is this deal so concerning?
Very quickly, if I can. Firstly, Victoria has had a sister state relationship with Jiangsu since 1979. And since then, every Premier, Labor and Liberal, have worked closely at developing a good relationship between Victoria and China. In fact, Daniel was up there last year celebrating our 40th anniversary. So the first point is we've already had very good friendship relationships with China. Secondly, Daniel has wanted his legacy to be that of the infrastructure premier. But already before COVID, our budget was out of control. In other words, they were spending a lot of borrowed money on infrastructure, some of it very good, some of it which I agree with, and borrowing money at low interest makes some sense. But the infrastructure burn is so great. I think he was looking around for someone to provide him with unlimited cash. And the Belt and Roads program by China is a tactical and a strategic policy by China to influence countries to accept finance so that they, China, can build basic assets. So in many places they build ports, in other words, in other places railways, roads, etc. The trouble is, this is an expansionist strategic policy by a foreign country who is looking around for those who are weakened states to accept their finance in return for infrastructure. And we're already seeing in some of those weakened countries now, some of those countries can't meet their financial obligations to China, and China is taking control of those assets in those countries. So we have this enormous, extraordinary position where our Premier, who has done many good things, has entered into a contract with another country which is not supported by his own political colleagues in Canberra, let alone the government, nor any other state Premier, Labor or Liberal. He has signed a contract which indicates we are in a weakened position, and he has split the unity of Australia in signing an agreement with a foreign country which, while on paper today Daniel might think this is safe, the prospects of it being so forever is obviously very dubious. Now, I don't blame the Chinese. They're entitled to pursue and to try and encourage people anywhere in the world to accept their hospitality through finance. But there was no need for this. Daniel obviously got swept up in the hospitality that he was shown, in a sign of weakness, has signed an agreement which we don't know about. He won't supply the details to the public of Victoria, and I understand he's got to make some big commitments over the next 4 weeks in order to honour part of that agreement. So he's sold our soul, as I put it, for no purpose. We've already had good arrangements with China, whether it be through education, whether it be through tourism, whether it be through trade. There was no need to enter into this agreement. Worse still, he's not being honest with us. He's not showing us the original contract. He's not telling us what he's about to enter into. And sadly, as you know, just recently he increased our debt by $24.5 billion. Now, whether he's going to have that financed by the Chinese or he's going to get the Chinese to pay for our infrastructure, I don't know. But we are owed an explanation. And as I say, there was no need to enter into this arrangement at all.
So, Jeff, this agreement allows Victoria's engineering and design firms to bid for Belt and Road projects around the world. The Premier spoke about this morning. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
If I'm to be criticised for the fact that we export more Victorian-made product to China, fine. But that won't be changing. Not if I have anything to do with it. We're going to keep working hard to get more people into what is arguably the biggest market in the world. More products. We're getting more students, more tourist visitors once we get our borders open. If there's additional building companies who want to come here and employ tens of thousands of Victorians to build the projects that Victorians voted for, all well and good.
So, Jeff, in your view, should those types of Chinese projects and markets be off limits, even if it's in the interest of Victoria's jobs?
Dougal, the point is, and this is where the Premier is misleading us, we were winning those contracts without this agreement. We were attracting tourists to the country and to Victoria. Students for education. Already Chinese firms are building a lot of our infrastructure. You didn't have to sign a secret agreement with China, which is part of their political, expansionist and strategic policy. So the Premier's trying to say all of that was at risk if we didn't sign that agreement. Rubbish. He's misleading us all. He's trying to paper over the fact that he is the only leader in Australia has been prepared to sign up to a foreign country's strategic expansionist policy, and we don't know what he's doing, and he won't tell us. That is my objection. I want to know. He should table the document immediately in the Parliament, and he should be forthright and honest with us all in telling us how much money he's going to borrow from the Chinese and what preference he's going to give to Chinese companies, invariably backed by the Chinese government, to build infrastructure projects here in Victoria. That's why I say he has sold our soul.
Jeff, we know that this is agreement is a memorandum of understanding. We know it's non-legally binding and it's actually quite vague in its language. Do you think there's more to it? You talk of secret contracts and the like.
Dougal, let me ask you a question. Have you seen that agreement? I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
I've seen it being...
We're being told what it says. We're being told what it says. We're not allowed to see it. And we don't know what the Premier might be signing up to before the end of June in line with that particular initial agreement. So, you know, we had the red shirts issue here some time ago where Labor and the Premier denied for years that his party had stolen money from the public to help their election campaign when they were first elected. They fought it everywhere through the courts at great expense to us, and finally they were found out. So my issue is, how can I have confidence in a party that won't be honest with us when they have a track record of that? And today the Premier's saying, oh look, we've increased our exports, we've got more tourists. Of course we have. He and other premiers before him, together with the agricultural industry, together with the federal government, together with the tourism bureaus, commercial operators, have been working hard to build those developments and those opportunities. That's not new. There was no need to sign an agreement with a foreign country that puts us as part of their strategic expansionist policies. That's my objection.
I want to ask you, if we wind it back this deal or try to unpick it in some way, won't that be harmful for Victoria in itself? We know what China is like. Won't we be punished economically and diplomatically?
No, I don't think so. China understands. They're not stupid. Of course, we're getting threats on other issues at the moment. But the original agreements we had with Jiangsu, the work that the federal governments, Labor and Liberal, have done, there's always going to be bumps in relationships. But we've always solved them. My worry is, and the opposition leader said he's going to rip up the agreements. Well, I don't know what he's going to rip up, and I don't like ripping up agreements. What I want the Premier to do is table the document in the Parliament and then tell us every time he borrows money from China or tells us when he intends to give Chinese companies preference over Australian companies or any other companies that might be competing for work here in Australia. Because that's what that agreement fundamentally says, as I understand it, that preference will be given to Chinese companies. Now, there's no way China is going to sign a strategic expansionist policy of Australia or America or the UK, but little Victoria has done it. We've been snowed. Daniel has been led to a position of action which I think is not becoming for he as Premier, and it's certainly not in the interests of Victoria.
Jeff, I'm just getting messages here. The MOU was publicly released in 2018 before the last election, and it's been online ever since then. It's vague in its language and is just an understanding between... There is no legal agreement. I just wanted to ask you, this is obviously an emotional issue for you. Why is that?
Because I respect the sovereignty of Victoria. I don't want my political leaders doing things that I don't know about. I asked you and you read the contract. You have not. I'm not saying to you that the concept of working with China is fine. What I don't like is allowing Victoria, against all the advice of federal foreign affairs, governments, political parties, every other state party to signing an agreement that is the strategic and expansionist policies of another country. Now, if you have a look around the world at the 70-odd countries that have taken access or taken advantage of this Belt and Road policy, most of them are financially weakened, so we've already said to China we're in that same category, and some of those countries now cannot meet their payments back to the Chinese government, and the Chinese government has, or reportedly will, take possession of those assets that they have built. That is not what Victoria, it is not what Australia is about.